The 2020 census is nearly upon us. This year, people can respond online, by phone, or through the mail, but not everyone will. During the 2010 census, about a quarter of all households in Arizona failed to send back their forms. If history repeats itself in 2020, there could be as many as 1.8 million Arizonans that go uncounted, and the consequences would impact the entire state. That's according to University of Arizona researcher Jason Jurjevich, who helped us understand these so-called hard-to-count populations.
There's certain groups that are more likely to be undercounted or missed in the census, and so you've alluded to some of those before. Immigrants, non-citizens, children, the homeless, rural residents, and individuals of color. One of the challenges for Arizona is it's a fast-growing state, and it's also a very diverse state.
What is the census doing differently this year?
I think the biggest change that Arizonans need to know about is that this census is more digital than it's been in the past. It's relying on administrative data, sort of a 21st century census. And it's also the first time that the census will have an internet response, which will allow Arizona households to respond to their form by filling the form out online.
When there's a digital component, there's also fear that it may not be perfect as knocking on the door and seeing people or talking. How does the census manage that this time around?
Well, fortunately, the Census Bureau has used the online response form with an annual survey called the American Community Survey. So they've been doing this for the past 5 to 7 years in the American Community Survey. Now, of course, one of the challenges this time will be that there will be roughly 325 million Americans, of which many of them will be responding online. And so ensuring that as people respond, the Bureau can handle those responses in terms of servers, ensuring that the data are private. That's a concern that a lot of Americans have expressed. And so they're doing a number of things, including working with the Department of Homeland Security to ensure that the data are in fact protected and private.
Remind our viewers that those who are skeptical of the privacy that they'll be involved in here with the census collecting is that there's a law that prohibits the government misusing this information.
Correct. The law is Title 13, and it went into effect in the early 1950s after census data were used to intern the Japanese Americans during World War II, turned over to the Department of Defense. After that, the federal government passed a law that said the Census Bureau cannot exchange any individual identifying information that the Bureau collects with other government agencies.
So the information is secure, yet people are still skeptical. How's the messaging going this time around?
I think that it's imperative that, one of the ways that Arizona is going to succeed, the U.S. is going to succeed, is that the Census Bureau has cultivated a number of partnerships, particularly with community-based organizations, to ensure that trusted community voices from individual communities are talking about why the census is important, why it's absolutely critical that you participate, and to address any particular questions.
And on that note, when you talk about resources, if you don't participate, 10 years down the line when we don't see funding, I guess we can't complain.
Ultimately, participation and being counted is about money and power. An average Arizonan brings in roughly $3,000 in federal funding per person per year to the state. That's determined by census numbers. Then, of course, political representation. Arizona is likely going to gain an additional congressional seat, so we'll have an additional House representative in the state, and that, of course, affects our electoral representation as well. And then I think maybe a less obvious sort of implication is that these data are used as the foundation for social science and policy research. And ultimately, we need to have a fair and accurate count to ensure that those policy prescriptions are fair and equitable, and that when we look at the outcomes of particular policies, that they are in fact equitable as well. And so if the numbers are not fair and accurate, that will hamper our ability to ensure that the policy is a good one.
This goes back to that thought that if you can participate, your voice will be heard. It's very simple.
Absolutely.
Okay, Jason, thank you.
Thank you.